Well, welcome into a very exciting episode of The Scene. I am your host, Bubba Startz, and with me today, the host of the Choice Wisdom podcast, Gayle Goodman Lynch. Welcome to the show, Gayle.
Well, thanks so much for having me, Bubba. I'm really excited to do this with you today.
I am completely honored. Before we get too far into our conversation, because I feel like we could go in a million different directions, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Okay, so I am a business life coach, which means I help people install systems and processes in their business to help that run better so that they can have a life that is peaceful. So, my main focus is to help other people make more money while achieving greater peace. And I love that work because it lights me up. And it also helps me, help other people in the way I wish I had been helped when I started my first business about 17 years ago. So, I'm also, as you mentioned, the host of the Choice Wisdom podcast. I started that about a year and a half ago. It's in season 2. And Choice Wisdom is all about interviewing people with inspirational stories who have made a specific choice in their lives that is now creating the life that they want. And I've interviewed a number of really interesting people with interesting stories, and that also fills my cup. I just love having those conversations like you were talking about. It's all about the conversation.
Well, and I always say that, I know that podcasts are changing the world. And with each episode, you alluded to it off camera, is that we grow a little bit. We grow a little bit as hosts, we grow a little bit as people. And I say, if it changes one life per episode and that life is mine, well, then we're winning.
Right? Exactly. And more than likely it's changed more than one at least because it impacts the person you're interviewing. And I don't know if this has been your experience in podcasting, but it's like my podcast community grows every single time I do an episode because I'm promoting it. I'm interviewing a specific individual, and they're like sending that out to their networks, and then people start to fall down the rabbit hole of, oh, this is an interesting podcast. I want to hear more. So I see a lift in all of my episodes once I interview a new person. So I think that's wonderful.
And that's exactly why, as a podcast fan, I kind of understood that. When I set out to do and start the scene projects, I knew immediately that it was a network, right? There was shows
Right.
within the show, and then it was like, okay, well, how can we involve other people and bring them in? So that's really what this year will be about now that we've kind of established ourselves as well. We just won an award for Content Creator of the Year this last weekend. So
Well, congrats. That's
thank you.
big.
Thank you. Well, we dug in our project, and as you had kind of spoken about, that we mostly do musicians, artists. That's branched into a lot more podcasters as of late. But I fell into a community called the Midwest Country Music Organization. They're kind of centered out here. I live in South Dakota. They're based in Minnesota. A lot of members in Iowa and around me. And I was relatively new to this side of the state. I grew up in South Dakota, but I grew up 5 hours west of where I live now. And a lot of my music friends were out there. So I was looking for any kind of community to tap into. Not that, South Dakota is just so small that while there is, plenty of musicians around, it's not necessarily networked very well. So found this organization, 300 members strong, all of them being, or most at least being, independent artists. And I just saw the need for more coverage in the area and committed myself to making the scene projects, the Rolling Stone and MTV, and eventually, hopefully, a little bit of Live Nation as well, when we can start to bring this together in more live concerts. So we were awarded that through the Midwest Country Music Organization, and it was kind of a shoe-in, right? When half the people voting have been a guest on your show, you kind of know which way the vote's gonna go. But I don't
Oh,
take
is that
anything
the
for
trick,
granted.
Bubba? Is that
Yeah.
what we need to do? Okay.
Well, it helps, right? Find out who's voting and you schmooze where you can.
Yeah, right. Right. Get to that just one up. I love
Yeah.
it. That's
So well,
great.
and I love what you're doing. The coaching is such a huge thing. Now, as someone who didn't really grow up in the corporate world, a blue collar guy, I was a welder before I quit my job last year to be a podcaster. Which is just crazy to think that I left that $50,000 a year job to go be broke for a year. But you know,
Yeah.
Now a year later where I'm like, oh man, is it all worth it? The award is nice, but now that it's blossoming and we have a business, right, and we're setting up these communities, I realize how important the coaching and the mentorship aspect of the corporate world, because that's where mostly you have it, because those are the people that can afford to pay a coach. But you don't want your work to be your whole life,
Oh,
right?
heck no.
And
Yeah.
there's so many systems out there now that for someone like me who didn't, come up in that world, I'm learning a lot, right? A CRM and all of these different things that can make your life so much easier. I've been doing everything the hard way for the last year, Gail. And without, the community, we're both a member, or at least we met in the C-suite network world, that I didn't know there was so much out there that could simplify my life. And yes, some things cost money, but that money spent is going to help you make more money and get more of your time back to spend with your family or your hobbies if you have some, and to do that. So, can you tell us a little bit more about the coaching business?
Yeah, sure. It's funny how you touch on this idea. It's like you didn't go through corporate America, right? So, okay, my whole career was the corporate America. I went to TCU, I got a degree in journalism, but always kind of had an eye toward getting a corporate job, right? So, synchronicity is a thing. I'm a big believer in it. I, went from one introduction to another and wound up working for an amazing company with an amazing culture. And I got the opportunity to go through several different jobs. I think I had 8 different job titles over an 11-year career with those guys and learned a ton about things like CRMs and stuff that you were just talking about. But when I went out on my own, even with my marketing knowledge, and I even went and got an MBA in marketing from the University of Dallas, where I also taught for 7 years in the MBA program. That was during while I was on my own in my own business. But when I started my business, I realized probably about 2, 3 years ago, it's like so many of the things that I would do in my own business, even with my knowledge, I was doing the hard way. Like I was working against myself more often than not. So I wound up getting certified last year in a methodology called Business Made Simple. It was founded by Don Miller, who wrote the book Story Brand, which a lot of marketing people are very familiar with. It's kind of the gold standard of how you brand and tell your story. And he has a system that helps people, kind of get out of their own way and simplify their business and install systems and processes that get you out of doing the day to day. Because what I do find, and I found this myself, I find this with other people that I coach, is that when you start a business, eventually it takes you over and it sneaks up on you in the middle of the night and takes over everything. And all of a sudden you do nothing but work. And you think, wow, my business is supposed to be serving my life and not me doing all, giving my life to the business, right? So I do help people sort of like zoom out and remember, why is it you got in business to begin with and where are you trying to go with life? When people show up at your memorial service 50 years from now, what do you want them to say? And they can't say anything about you if you didn't actually live a life all that time. So no one ever wants to talk about the guy who worked all the time, right? So yeah, and
No,
that's kind of that's sort of in a nutshell, right? It's like, and I got there because I had other coaches that inspired me first. I have a life coach and I also have a business coach. And, those people, I kind of blended the two of those methodologies into my own coaching. And I think too, from a coaching perspective, when you engage with a coach, it's a relationship thing, right? You want to engage with that coach that's just a few steps ahead of you, not someone that's so great at what they do that they can't really relate to you anymore. So I've been the entrepreneur. Those are people I like to work with. I've been the small business that's scaling. My husband and I own a separate business that it's a sign company, and we installed all these systems and processes in our sign company, and we were cash positive within 7 months of opening the business in a manufacturing business, which is kind of a big deal.
pretty unheard
So
of. Yeah.
yeah, right. We're pretty excited about that. Now I'm not going to say we've paid ourselves back yet by any means. That I mean, total break even, but hey, we are really on track to doing amazing things. And I credit the fact that we were willing to come together as a couple and build a business that has a long-term vision and not just, hey, let's go start a business.
Right. And I kind of spoke about where when I started my podcast that it was always with a bigger vision. It was already, I mean, from its inception, I had 2 or 3 show ideas. And being a fan of Andy Frisella and seeing how he had kind of organized, oh, well, they do 3 episodes a week, or, maybe more sometimes or less, that there was very specific shows within that. And it's like, oh, so your YouTube channel is really a network. Okay, well, you're limited by YouTube with how much you can post, but you have to be
Mm-hmm.
everywhere all the time. And I have all these conversations. I mean, we can have 12 of these conversations a day, but I can't post them all. And it
Yeah.
just became, okay, well, then I need more channels. I need this channel and I need this, and just my interests. I love sports, but sports don't really, I mean, while they do blend over with music a little bit at different points, it wasn't necessarily that all the music fans were going to love all the sports content. So,
Right.
the Scene Project Sports Network is born. We were doing this right
Make
as
your own
the
network.
Right. Well, and that's what, when Elon Musk came out and said, we are the media, last fall, it was just a light bulb to me where it was like, oh, that mainstream media, that model is gone. It is dissipating
Yeah.
right in front of our eyes. And eventually all of that money is going to come away from it as well. So I wanted to have myself poised to kind of not take a large chunk of that, but to get my chunk of that pie. And that's what's
Yeah.
happening, is that instead of it being this, massive pie and 10% of it was for the independent media people, now it might be flipped completely on its head, where 90% of that money is now going out into independent media sources, and there is no mainstream anymore, right? It has
Yeah.
reached the ocean, and it's just kind of what current you happen to be in. So we've aligned ourselves with several things that we're passionate about. I'm not in this to get famous, right? I'm in this because I like having conversations. I like empowering other people to have conversations. And I like kind of shedding a spotlight on my creative friends, right? Who are also
Yeah.
business owners, these musicians, that's their business. So, really, all of what I'm doing is just going around and spotlighting these creative business people that are out there operating in the world that, for the most part, nobody else really wants to talk to, because they look at them as their own spotlight, right?
Yep.
They are operating in their own world. And I'm more like, okay, cool, you can have your world. I want to be the universe that you take part in,
I
right?
love that.
I want to bring that. We want to be the galaxy, right? We want to be the larger. I've always said that the Scene Project is kind of an umbrella. We want to be an umbrella where creative people at all steps of the journey can kind of come underneath, can learn and be empowered by other people and coaches and all of it. Because I've seen that. I've seen in the last year what some of these communities have done for me, not just on the business side, but also on the personal growth side. It's
Yeah.
it's led me to accepting this position as an authority and as a leader, and looking to people that I'm not so far past them that I can't go, hey, this is how we did it. I don't know if it's perfect for you, but this is how we've done it. We've seen some success now, right? We have this award. I don't know what it means out in the wider world, but we've gotten this far from absolutely nothing in a year's time. If we can do this, then you can get somewhere at least. Maybe you don't sprint to the finish line like we did to get around that first lap and to go, okay, well, now we have all the things. Maybe you're just trying to get that easy podcast started, or just a business, right? A simple business plan. And I always say, get off the sidelines and into the game. And I think there's such a huge fear of starting anything.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. When I started my podcast, I had been talking about it for like 5 years. I mean, no joke. It literally came up over wine with some girlfriends of mine. And I said, I think I'm going to start this podcast. And it's going to be all about, the stuff that we Gen X women deal with, right? We've got the young kids still growing up, and we got the aging parents. And, maybe I'll call it the panini, podcast or something. So I feel like I'm not just the sandwich, I'm a panini. I'm getting squished. And, we laughed about it. And then COVID happened. And then all this other stuff happened. And finally, I was talking to my life coach, and she said, you keep bringing up this podcast. And my challenge to you is just go do it. because I would get all up in my head and I would want it to be perfect and I would want it to be like, ideal. So I said, all right, I'm going to make this easy on myself. I'm going to start this podcast, and I made it a news magazine format. So I would interview three people, and it was like, I loved It's American Life on NPR. So it's one of my favorite podcasts, or my favorite media shows. So I thought, I'm going to do something like that. And then I'm going to publish it every other month. I'm not even going to do every week, because people are like, oh, you're going to be podcasting every week. I'm like, no, I think my head would explode. So I'm going to do it every other month. Well, now I've gone to monthly, and I've gone to a different format in season 2. It's really all about leveling up. So sometimes I interview one person, and sometimes I interview two people, and sometimes it's a panel, whatever. So I love doing it that way, because it gives me the ultimate freedom to decide what the heck it is I want to do, and it still holds me accountable. So my idea is that I drop a new podcast every 3 to 4 weeks. I give myself a little buffer there, and I keep going. But it's funny, I get so many people that want to be interviewed now, that I'm really now kind of having that conversation with myself. It's like, maybe I need to go to bi-weekly. I don't know if maybe it will be weekly one day, but it starts somewhere, to the point that you're just making, right? It's like, do what you think you can do with the time that you've got, or the energy that you got, and just start and stay consistent. Because I did notice, like, during COVID, did you notice how many people started a podcast? Like, there is a bazillion of them that started in like 2020, and then they were gone within like 6, 8 months. I'll listen to some, I'll stumble across them on Spotify or whatever. And I'm like, oh, wow, that was a really great podcast. But it had like 8 episodes, and then poof, it's gone. So
They
stick
went
with it.
back
I
to
love that you're
work.
doing it. They went back to work, and yeah, it's like now they got no time for it. So it's like, okay, if you're going to do it, but just promise yourself you're going to be consistent, because like you're talking about, Bubba, it's like, these are conversations. Whoever needs to hear it's going to hear it. And maybe you might touch one person's life with a message that they needed to hear in that moment. And that's where they level up. And that's why my whole season 2 is about leveling up. That's all it really is. Show up.
No, and I've built my entire network off of this podcast. Everyone that I'm working with now has been a guest on the show
Well,
and
there you
have
go.
come through this thing. I live in the middle of the cornfields in South Dakota. Like,
I
there's
remember you
nobody
telling me
out
that.
here. So I needed the show, and I needed the podcast to be that connection for me, and that easy point of entry. So, and I'm happy to be here now, where, not that it's paid off yet, but we have accomplished kind of that first step. Are we worthy of being out here in this media world? And now we have an affirmative, right? Yes, you
Right.
not only are worthy, but you can be the top in your small community for that. Now let's take that out wider, and to take over more of the Midwest. And we've developed the Midwest Podcasting Network, and organization to support other podcasters on their journey. The Midwest Original Music Organization is a new organization, because while I love my Midwest CMO, not everyone I know is into country music, right? Or
Right.
falls under
Yeah.
that label. So I kind of wanted something with a little broader scope and a little bit more in the education. The Midwest Country Music Organization has a beautiful awards show. They get you on the radio airplay with their group of radio stations, but it lacks a little bit in the education factor. And instead of trying to hone into something that was established and change it from there, I'll just go start my own thing. Like, it's cool. I'll just do my own thing, right? I
Sometimes
mean,
that's the best way to do it, right?
well, it gives me the creative freedom to do it my way, and to not have to worry about an existing board of people that I'm trying to convince of my ideas. I'll just go do it. And if it succeeds,
Hmm.
it succeeds because of me. And if it fails, it fails because of me as well. And I'm perfectly fine taking on that responsibility. Gayle, we
Love
only
that.
have a few minutes left here today. I've appreciated every second that you've given us here. Why don't you go ahead and plug all the things that you want to before I let you go? And I hope one day I can return the favor and come be a guest on Choice Wisdom.
I would love that. Yes, so I would love it. In the spirit of networking and podcast sharing, my podcast is Choice Wisdom. It is on Apple Podcasts. It's on Spotify. It's on Audible, and it's on Amazon Music. Not on YouTube yet. So I have kind of a funny story that my backstory is I used to do radio. And that's why podcasting seems so appealing to me, right? But for me, radio is radio. Like it's audible only, and the whole YouTube thing is not something I've gone down that road at all. But maybe one day I'll inspire myself. I'll level up next year maybe and go to video. But so it is on all those channels, where you can go to choicewisdompodcast.com. And I also publish a weekly newsletter called Practically Grounded. So, kind of going back to the conversation we just had about, just get out there and do it, take grounded action, do the thing you need to do, and stick with it. That is what that newsletter is all about. So, it comes in your inbox every Friday morning at 6 a.m., and it is a less than 3 minute read. And the idea is to get you kind of motivated going before the weekend and the week ahead to take grounded action.
Awesome. Well, Gayle, thank you so much for being part of the scene, and I look forward to coming on Choice Wisdom with you soon.
I appreciate that. Thanks so much.